Hi everyone and welcome back. This week we're on chapter 6 of my book Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids, which explores Tartaria and the Lost Empire, or the empire that never was. Within my book we talk about all sorts of subjects around the Tartarian conspiracy, which range from the reproduction program that's known as the Cabbage Patch Babies, to the architecture with star forts, churches and cathedrals. We also talk about the world's fairs and the role that Nikola Tesla played in possibly reverse engineering Tartarian technology. Before I read chapter 6, which is Fire, Flood and the Comet of 1811, I just want to thank everyone that subscribed to this channel. And I'd like to thank everybody that's engaged and joined the group on Facebook. It's really important to get feedback, so I know whether or not what I'm putting out there is of interest and whether or not it's filling in any blanks, if I'm given enough information to help you decide to buy or not buy the book. Subscription, likes and comments really do help the algorithm on YouTube. And it encourages me to keep doing this. I'm getting a lot of support for the book, the Facebook page and this channel, but it all really does help. So I just want to thank everybody that's hit the like button, joined me on Facebook or subscribed to this channel, so thank you. At the time of recording this, Donald Trump has become the President of the United States for the second time. And whenever I hear his name, I instantly think of his Uncle John. Now, John Trump was the person that recovered Nikola Tesla's files from the Hotel New Yorker just after he died, actually within a few hours of him dying, which always seemed suspicious to me because 3 days earlier he had planned to meet with the American military to discuss the death ray, which was a device he'd been working on that literally shielded, like a force field, people, areas, countries, and made ultimately the whole purpose of war pointless because nobody would be able to attack anybody. So his death to me doesn't seem like a natural event, and seems more like perhaps he was actually disposed of because of the information he had. But if you voted for Trump, then congratulations. If you didn't, commiserations. But I'm sure we'll see the effects of his presidency soon over here in the UK and a lot sooner in the US. But whether or not he's a good guy and he's on our side remains to be seen. I'm sat on the fence. I really don't know. I can't decide. And Elon Musk for me is also of a similar ilk. I can't decide whether or not he's actually a wolf in sheep's clothing or not, but time will tell. Anyway, here we go. So this is chapter 6, Fire, Flood and the Comet of 1811. So if you're sitting comfortably, we shall begin. The Comet of 1811 continued to aftershock well into the following year and appears to have been the strategic bombing of major Tartarian civilizations across the world. Throughout Europe they referred to the event as Napoleon's Comet, and in America as Tecumseh's Comet, or Legacy. Tecumseh was a Shawnee chief and warrior who promoted resistance to the expansion of the United States onto Native American lands. A persuasive orator, Tecumseh travelled widely, forming a Native American confederacy and promoting intertribal unity. Tecumseh was killed at the Battle of Thames in Ontario, Canada in 1813, aged just 43 years old. Not much was known about comets at the time, and most people hadn't seen anything like this before. It apparently broke off into approximately 200 meteors when it entered our atmosphere. Some hit land and some missed. These events must have been terrifying. Even the sun was reported to turn black for several days. From start to finish it lasted 17 months, and craters are still visible around the world today. In many ways this event mirrored a similar catastrophe during the reign of the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II, and is actually predicted to happen every 2065 years. Not only that, but it was also predicted in the Book of Enoch, which states that 200 watchers or Nephilim would ascend the earth to destroy the evil done by mankind and man itself. What happened next cannot possibly be considered coincidental. Fires destroyed almost every town and city in the world, and by almost, I really do mean almost. Even small market towns had fires, floods, or both. Ultimately, the parasites wanted every last remnant of the Tartarian Empire wiped from the pages of history. However, whether they used Jews or nuclear or atomic weapons is unknown. But regardless, it doesn't look like they hit all of the targets they had hoped for. In addition, not everywhere could be destroyed in as dramatic a way, simply because the parasites still needed at least some form of basic infrastructure. They also needed enough people to survive, so life could continue and a very basic level of society could still exist. They were hardly going to mine and farm for themselves. Just imagine how long it would take to destroy a list of specific buildings in just one major city, let alone every city in the world. Added to this, there were almost certainly a huge number of Tartarian survivors, which in my opinion was the reason for the Napoleonic and civil wars that followed, with the sole purpose of killing as many people from the old world as possible. I will expand upon this subject in my next chapter. Perhaps the most famous of these events was the New Madrid earthquake, which had a magnetic pull so great that it made metal objects that literally flew through the air stick together. It also caused the Mississippi River to change direction by 180 degrees and had such a bizarre effect that domestic animals and pets became wild and untamable, yet at the same time wild animals became docile and approached humans for protection and shelter. Have you ever wondered why archaeologists have to dig so far down? Obviously things get trodden into the ground, like remnants and detritus of war, cigarette tins, ammunition, medals and weapons, etc. But why are so many Roman villas and buildings typically discovered several feet under the ground? But programs like the Time Team, which is popular in Britain, spend every episode digging trench upon trench without a single mention of why they are having to dig so deeply. Well, there is one logical explanation for this: the mud flood. The comet or bombings, followed by earthquakes and floods, caused a deluge. Rivers of mud soared through the cities and towns, covering the streets and land with up to 20 feet of silt, rock and melted rock. Once the flooding had stopped, these rivers of mud settled, then hardened, and the old roads and streets of before were covered forever. But you don't have to watch the Time Team to see the effect of this. Just take a look at any building built before these events and you will see, as I've mentioned before, the basement windows half covered by pavements and sidewalks, doors located a little too high to access without steps, and buildings like churches with trenches all around them that serve no purpose and, if original, would have made the construction very difficult, as you'd have to step into a narrow gap to build it. In fact, if not all of these Tartarian buildings didn't have basements or cellars, they were actually the ground floor. But, for speed and simplicity, rather than digging all of the roads up again, they converted the ground floors into cellars. Not only have I included images of these in the centre pages, but the area where you live will have visible signs of this too. These mud floods are often referred to as a deluge and are, as many of the subjects I've touched on, mentioned in the Old Testament. Perhaps the most famous being the Great Flood and the story of Noah. However, with regard to the destruction of the Tartarian Empire, the most famous flood or deluge is the Great Californian Mud Flood of 1862. This was caused following a flood, then a very warm storm that melted the snows on top of the mountains. This flooded the valleys and towns below, and the houses, people, vehicles and animals were simply washed away. Today, it is still remembered as the worst natural disaster to ever hit California. So there you go, just a few paragraphs from chapter 6 of my book. If you'd like any more information on it, please get in touch. You can comment below or drop me an email. I'll put my email in the description. But thanks for tuning in again, and for those of you that have subscribed, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, goodbye for now.